This is Ezekiel Elliot, and he is widely recognized, especially in the state of Texas, for being one of the best running backs to ever play for the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of people forget just how incredible this man was the first few years of his career, as he was out there dominating the NFL and proving to be one of the best backs in the entire league. But a lot of people forget that he was just as, if not more dominant in college, ending his career as one of, if not the best back in program history, ultimately leading him to the NFL, where he also became one of the best centers for the Dallas Cowboys too.
Final play, it looks like barring a penalty. Prescott over the middle of the turret, gets smoked right away.
So today I will be putting one of my favorite running backs of all time in my last video of College Football 25. Let's see how Ezekiel Elliott became the great player that he once was, as we follow him on his road to glory. Now, coming out of high school, one of the most important things for Zeke was one day winning a national championship. And considering the fact that he was a 4-star recruit, he did have quite a few options to choose from when it came to making his college decision. But out of all the top schools that he felt like could potentially win a national championship, there was only one that he felt like he could potentially get the chance to show what he can do. So when it came to Ezekiel Elliott's college decision, he decided to sign with Ohio State. Now, going into his freshman year of college, although Zeke felt like he could really go out there and make a difference for the team, it turns out that they already had a pretty good starting running back in Carlos Hyde. So even though Zeke was out there at practice really doing his thing and impressing the coaches, they knew that they would have to wait to use his services for another year. So throughout the season, Zeke was getting pretty much little to no playing time at all. And it turns out that he would end his freshman year with a little over 260 yards and only 2 touchdowns. And instead of exploring his options in the transfer portal, he decided to give Ohio State another shot, because he had worked hard all offseason to grow as a player, and the coaches had recognized that. They saw a lot of potential in him to one day become the full-time starter, as the coaches felt like there were not many players on the roster that were a better athlete than Zeke. But at this point, there were so many running backs on the team that Zeke would actually have to take a little bit of a back seat going into the season, as there was one guy named Curtis Samuel who you might recognize as an NFL wide receiver, but at the time he was actually an Ohio State running back. And it's funny because in the first game of the year, they actually had Zeke out there catching passes like this one that went for a touchdown, coming up with the score later on against the weak-ass UConn team, putting Ohio State up by over 40 points. But in a big-time blowout where throughout the fourth quarter, Zeke was showing exactly what he can do, coming up with another reception that went for his second touchdown of the day. Not only did he impress the Ohio State coaches a lot, but he had also done enough to help put an end to this game, as Ohio State came up with a dominant win in Week 1 and really just set the tone for the Buckeyes going forward throughout their season. But even though Zeke wasn't out there getting as many touches as he wanted early on, he had always known, even since he was a little kid, that he would one day achieve greatness. So it did take a couple weeks, but eventually Zeke was now getting a chance to become the full-time starter for the Buckeyes. And in practice, he did not disappoint, as he continued to prove that there was nobody who was more athletic than him. Zeke knew growing up that he one day had a chance to become a special player in college and potentially even in the pros. But now it was not just him believing it, as the coaches had officially moved him up. And soon, Ezekiel Elliott was now heading into his first game as the starting running back for Ohio State, where they would be set to face off against an in-state rival, Ohio. Now, with Ohio State being one of the best teams in all of the nation, it did not take long for the offense to start moving, as the quarterback would find a man downfield for a touchdown, coming up with a big score that put the Buckeyes up 7-0 early on in this game. But soon after, Zeke was now getting his touches as the starter. And it also didn't take long for him to say Shabaka and prove that he was going to be a pretty big problem for opposing defenses, as by the end of the second quarter, they would eventually get down to the goal line, and this speed option would get Zeke in the end zone for his first rushing touchdown of the season, putting Ohio State up 14 and seemingly giving them a lot of control in this game before Ohio came back and tied this game up. But now in the second half of this one, this Ohio State offense was stalling out quite a bit, getting stopped once on third down in the third quarter and then again later on in the fourth, ultimately resulting in a 4-point deficit with under 3 minutes left to go in this game. But when they had a guy like Zeke out there and he was just able to say, hey, and move the chains for his team, it didn't take long for them to get to the opposite side of the field, where now it seems like this offense was moving. They got inside the red zone with less than 30 seconds left in this game. And on third down and 1 down at the goal line, they handed the ball off to Zeke, and he was easily able to just dive across for a touchdown, coming up with a big-time score in the final moments of this game, doing enough to give his team another victory on the season, as Ohio State would close this one out 24-21. And Ezekiel Elliott would actually go on to win player of the game with over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on the ground. A big-time performance for this sophomore running back, And the entire Ohio State fanbase felt like there was going to be a lot more big plays to be made from that young running back throughout the season, especially going into their next matchup where they would once again be at home, facing off against one of the best teams in the country, third-ranked Penn State. Now early on against Penn State, Zeke continued to show his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield on a drive that extended into the second quarter. But he was also showing that he had potential to be a ferocious runner, breaking off multiple tackles as he led his team across the 50, eventually bringing his team to a 4th down and 1 where he kept the drive alive with a powerful run, leading to another 4th down at the goal line where instead of running the ball, the QB decided to dump it down to Zeke where he got across the goal line for a touchdown, putting Ohio State up 7-0 on a drive that took up the entirety of the second quarter. But in a game where Penn State's offense was seemingly struggling quite a bit, Ezekiel Elliott's ability to burst through the running lanes and keep the clock moving seemed to be crucial for Ohio State, as they were on another drive that was now taking off a bunch of time in the 4th quarter. And ultimately, as this game went under 2 minutes, Zeke had helped Ohio State come up with another big-time victory at home, earning himself player of the game where his one score turned out to be the only score of the entire night, closing this one out 7-0 against a top 3 team in the nation. But with Zeke still working hard to grow as a player, he knew that there was going to be a lot more opportunities to have bigger and better games down the stretch, including his next one where Ohio State would now be heading on the road to face off against Illinois. Early on in this one, Zeke was out there running wild. He took a handoff to the right side where he decided to jump. Maybe he's not there yet. But he did help his team get down to the goal line on a 4th down where he got stuffed in a backfield. And it looked like this was going to be a bad start for Ohio State, but it actually turns out that this was exactly Zeke's plan, as they actually ended up getting a safety, putting them up 2-0. And now with the help of Ezekiel Elliot, Ohio State was heading right back downfield, putting them back towards the goal line where a handoff to the left side gets them across the goal line for a touchdown, putting the Buckeyes up by 2 possessions with less than a minute left in the half, and giving them a ton of momentum going forward that would carry on into the 4th quarter, where another handoff to Ezekiel Elliott inside the red zone would lead to another touchdown, putting Ohio State up by now 3 possessions with less than 2 minutes left in this game. A huge score that not only gives them a commanding lead, but is now giving Ohio State another victory on the year, as they close out this game 17-0, and once again Ezekiel Elliott earns himself another player of the game. And at this point, man, he's been playing so well that he can't wait to keep things going throughout the rest of his season. This man had been balling, and he knew he was about to go crazy. He felt like he might put up 2,000 yards. All right, now see, this did not happen. And to be honest, I don't even know why he's suspended. He got a perfectly good 2.0 credit. That's good enough for me. You know what? He'll be fine next week. It's all. All right, bro. That's all good. You know what? It's fine. He gonna be back the next week. And you know what? He gonna go crazy. All right, man. He back, man. 2.6 GPA, man. He back. Now, I'll be completely honest. This is not lore accurate, but you know what? We just gonna keep it pushing because the way Ohio State been playing this year, they are still one of the best teams in the nation. And with Ezekiel Elliott back on the field, they're about to continue to prove that, especially going into their next game at home against unranked Minnesota. Now, unfortunately, in this one, Ohio State was struggling a little bit early on. But with Zeke actually out there playing a little bit of receiver, they started to play a lot better when he said, "Get off me, bitch ass boy, what you doing?" And picked up a nice little 1st down for his team, eventually bringing him down to the goal line where he easily crossed over for a touchdown, putting up some points that tied this game up at 7 apiece. And now Ohio State seemed to have all the momentum. And Zeke actually didn't really have to do much in this game as Ohio State's offense started to move up and down the field, coming up with a big score later on in the 3rd quarter that not only gave them the lead, but turned out to be enough to already put this game away, as the Buckeyes would close this game out 17-7, and they were now looking like one of the favorites to potentially get to the national championship. They were sitting firmly as the number 2 ranked team in the country, and almost the entire nation felt like they were about to steamroll over their next 2 opponents, as Ohio State, led by Ezekiel Elliott, was looking forward to closing out their regular season. With Ohio State having one more game left in their season, they just had to lock in to punch their ticket to the Big Ten Championship. And early on, Ezekiel Elliott would set the tone by bursting up the middle, and after he got a couple of incredible blocks downfield, he was able to be sprung loose for a touchdown, giving the Buckeyes a ton of momentum to where they were now up almost 40 points in the second half. And unfortunately for Michigan, it turned out that Ohio State nor Zeke was done quite yet. He took a handoff to the left side that allowed him a ton of space to say, "Excuse me," and break off a couple tackles before seeing these 2 dudes and say, "Hey." And all of a sudden, Zeke was breaking loose for another touchdown, getting to the end zone for Ohio State to put up over 50 points on the day. And just like that, Zeke had officially punched Ohio State's ticket to the Big Ten championship, as they ended up closing this game out 58-7, absolutely dominating this game led by another Ezekiel Elliot performance. But in order to fulfill his goal of one day winning a national championship, he had to keep up this level of play going into the biggest game of his life, where now Ohio State was about to face off against one of the toughest opponents that they've seen all season, the now 5th-ranked USC Trojans. Now early on in this one, Zeke was out there saying, "Get off!" and picking up a big first down for his team. And one of the more underrated aspects of Zeke, even when he was in college, was that he was able to come up with big catches out of the backfield, bring him upfield a little bit before saying, "Hey," and come up with big-time first downs. But in a game where both offenses had struggled a little bit, it turns out that Zeke would be the one who put up the first score of the game, putting up a score that allowed Ohio State to take the 7-0 lead at the end of the second quarter. And that seemingly set the tone for them going forward, because as the third quarter rolled around, we would get to a play where they would find Zeke open in the backfield, and all of a sudden he was loose. There was nobody who was going to be able to catch him as he crossed over the goal line for a touchdown, putting up a score that gave Ohio State all the momentum in this game. And it seems like they would maintain it going into the fourth quarter, as they were still up by 14. And all it really took was a couple more Ezekiel Elliott handoffs that went for a first down just like this one, that not only allowed them to chew out the rest of the clock, but also punch their ticket to the first ever college football playoffs, as Ohio State would win this game 17-0. And although Ohio State had been incredible as a team all season, yet again they would win off the back of another Ezekiel Elliott incredible performance, as he went for over 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Zeke had been absolutely dominant all season and established himself as one of the best players in the country. And on top of that, he even went on to win a Heisman Trophy. No, he didn't actually do that. Marcus Mariota actually won the Heisman Trophy this year, but in this game, man, we giving it to Zeke. He should have won it. One thing for sure, though, is that he was definitely the best running back in the nation. And he was one of the main reasons why Ohio State was now heading into the first ever college football playoffs, where it seems like they're about to play against a team that they had literally just dog-walked, matching up once again against the top 10 ranked USC Trojans. Now, although USC had the lead early on, it did not take long for Ohio State to get downfield and tie this game up off the back of Ezekiel Elliott. But in a game where Ohio State had actually struggled quite a bit, it took a while for them to get back in this game, as they were down by 7 throughout the majority of the game. But eventually, on second and goal, a big-time catch over the middle by Ezekiel Elliott would tie this game back up, putting it at 14 apiece in the Rose Bowl before USC would take the lead once again. But now with around a minute left in this game, Ohio State had to come up with some big plays. But thanks to Zeke, who came out the backfield and said, "Hey," and broke off a couple tackles, getting his team across the 50, it looked like they were now in a pretty good position. He continued to come up with some pretty nice catches over the middle that got his team down inside the red zone, eventually leading to a first and goal with less than 1 minute left, leading to a handoff to the right side where Zeke was able to burst upfield and power his way across the goal line for a touchdown, allowing Ohio State to take the lead in the final moments of this game. And now, for the first time since 2007, Ohio State was now heading back to the national championship, winning this game 21-17 against a Big Ten opponent, led by a star player who had led them all throughout the season, with Zeke going for 3 touchdowns in the biggest game of his career. But he was now heading into another biggest game of his career, and this one would be for all the glory of who would claim the first title in the first ever college football playoffs, as now the number 1 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes was set to face off against Florida State. Now, this game actually started out great for Ohio State. Somehow they started off with a safety and an offense that handed the ball off to Zeke, where he said, "Hey," and picked up a big-time first down. Unfortunately, though, on 4th and 1, the drive would end as they got stopped in the backfield, leading to a 7-2 lead for Florida State in the second quarter. But with the help of Ohio State's great running game, they were moving right back downfield with around 2 minutes left in the half. And eventually they would get down to the goal line with less than 30 seconds left, where a carry to Ezekiel Elliott led to a touchdown that would take the lead for the Buckeyes, seemingly giving them a ton of momentum going forward as they would get the ball back to start the second half. But unfortunately, their opening drive would not end well, as they would get stopped on 3rd down, allowing Florida State to take the lead back 14-9 heading into the 4th quarter. But the good news is that Zeke was looking to have one of the best games of his career, taking his handoff around the edge before saying, "Hey," and picking up a huge chunk of yardage for the squad, leading them to a 4th down and 1. But now in the 4th quarter, Zeke knew that he could not let the drive end right here. Unfortunately, though, they would be put right back in an even worse situation, as it was now 4th down and 8, but another catch and run from Ezekiel Elliott picks up a first down, putting them at first and goal with less than 2 minutes left in this game. And with what could be the first championship for the Buckeyes on the line since the 1970s, all they had to do was hand it off to Zeke, who crossed over the goal line for a touchdown, putting up a score that took the lead for Ohio State in the final minutes of this game. And after Florida State was not able to come up with the score, Ohio State had come out as national champions, becoming the first national champions in the college football playoff era, and winning their first title since 1970. This team, led by Ezekiel Elliot, had accomplished greatness, and in very large part thanks to Zeke. College football fans around the country will always remember Ohio State as the first ever champions of this era. Now, Ezekiel Elliot had an incredible season in his sophomore year, but because he was only a sophomore, he did have one more year to play. And with many people feeling like he was easily the best running back in the country, well, it was safe to say that going into his junior season, he did not disappoint. He went out there in his third season in college football and put up over 1,800 yards, solidifying his position as one of the best offensive players in the entire nation. And that's exactly why, after another incredible season, Ezekiel Elliott actually went on to be drafted 4th overall in the upcoming NFL draft, selected by my favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, where after an incredible couple first seasons with them, it was pretty unfortunate that his final playoff game in Dallas turned out to be, well, but this was the story of Ezekiel Elliott in College Football 25. And a big shout out to Misty Matthews 8934, who repeatedly requested that I do this video. And considering that this will be my last video of College Football 25, I just want to say thank you to everybody who supported me all year. You guys have made it possible for me to continue doing this, and when I say that I thank you guys and I appreciate you guys more than you could possibly know, I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, mean it. So if you want to see more videos like this in College Football 26, be sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel. And also be sure to comment down below who else you guys want to see in College Football 26. But as we start off the new year, we will be returning with one of the greatest linebackers in the history of football, Bobby Boucher. So be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see Bobby Boucher coming next week. Once again, if you got to this point in the video, just know that I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. I hope you all have an incredible weekend and 4th of July, and I'll catch you guys next time.